The film is not about politics. I'm not engaged in politics. I think when we talk about holistic approach, I think it's the thing that can, through the arts, through architecture, through anything, can unite people. Good evening to everyone, and thanks for coming, to this discussion and the event, and I hope you all watched the film and enjoyed it. And before I will say a few words on the film, I would like to thank Dr. Stefano Serafini, Research Director of International Society of Biourbanism, for his many efforts, for this event to happen. I came to create my film, not from the film industry, but from the world of architecture, which is part of the art world in general. And I always thought also that architecture should also be taught in art schools and not, in technological institute, though I was teaching in both. I'm a practicing architect living in Tel Aviv, and I was a senior lecturer in Bezalel Academy for Art and Design in Jerusalem, and at the Technion Institute of Technology in Haifa. Now, in the early 80s, as Stefano mentioned, I did, select postgraduate studies in UC Berkeley in architecture and Buddhism, as well as studies, research work, and project with Christopher Alexander at his Center for Environmental Structure in Berkeley. And since then, my main focus was really in implementing into practice the holistic phenomenological approach to architecture in the actual buildings that I designed in my studio in in Israel. So the film is in fact the third of, I would say, a trilogy following the buildings that I designed and the published books that I wrote. And as you saw, the questions that engage me in the world of architecture and art, the film deals with them as well, but in a different way. I'm a 7th generation descendant of a family living in the Holy Kabbalah city of Tzfat in Israel, since early 19th century. And this was maybe the word that had the most impact on my worldview as a whole. Now, when I started to think about the film, I knew that there will be a substantial connection between what I've experienced and absorbed as a child in Tzfat and my present point of view on architecture and art, which undoubtedly derived also from this place. But moreover, from my present, maybe scientific point of view, I understood that what I've experienced unconsciously as a child in Tzfat is not a subjective phenomenon, due only, to my intimate relationship to the place, but rather a universal and objective one. And now I would really be very happy to answer to any question that you may have after you watched the film.
Dr. Robin Monotti Graziadei, who is an important architect, is an activist, is a movie director or movie producer, and is a writer and a translator. So he has
for the movie, which I enjoyed very much. And my question is, I had a sense of a kind of melancholia, probably related to almost a kind of Proustian search of lost time. But that question that came to me, and because I have never been to, I don't know how to pronounce it properly. Sefai.
Yeah, well, sometimes they say Safed, or it depends, but
yeah. So, and I don't. So I almost got the sense that I saw the buildings that you did there. So obviously the place is still there and still working, but I almost had a feeling that the place was lost when I was watching the film. So there was almost a correspondence of the questions in my mind were is the hotel still there? Is it run by someone else? Is the building doing something else? Is the building abandoned? Is the town still there? Is it operating like it did when you were a child? So basically raised a lot of questions in relationship between the memory of the place and the place as it is now. And you know, are there little girls there now that are having your same experiences, maybe in a slight difference? Because I almost feared, by watching it and the feeling it gave me, I almost feared that everything was lost. But then I saw the buildings and realized it wasn't. So my question was, how is it now?
In what sense did you feel that everything is lost? Because
feeling, just purely feeling, the feeling that the film gave me, almost that the place may have been, it almost maybe
because it was empty, or because what you saw, or what you understood from the subtext?
No, just what it made me feel. I'm talking purely feelings now.
Well,
I know.
Feeling, you know, feelings. It's also in architecture. Maybe it's one of the theme of the film. You know, feeling comes from something that you see, something from you hear. I mean, it's not just out of the blue. So I was just wondering and curious to know what made you feel it. But anyway, I will answer your questions, because you see, the film really is a reconstruction of this place, which was, I would say, in the 50s, in the 60s, maybe until the late 70s, when I was a child in the 50s. And so what I did now, really, I mean, if you come now to this place, I don't think you would have the same feeling that I wanted to convey and reconstruct it in the film. You know, I really tried to convey the feeling that I had as a child there. And it took to, you know, to clean it, to move things. You know, it's not a documentation of a place as it is now, not at all. It's really a reconstruction. I mean, it's all staged. Well, staged, I mean, you know, the buildings are there and the kitchen was there. And, but, you know, I mean, now, actually, you know, I was working for 7 years on the film. And part of the what you see was shot in 2009, and part 2012, 2013. If you come now, it's completely different. I mean, really, and it's very depressing for me, because, you know, I feel I have these memories. I actually decided to make the film when I understood that my family inherited the place, you know, that was belonged to my grandmother, are going to sell the hotel. And then I said, wow, I mean, I must, you know, and really, you know, I'm not from the industry, I'm an architect. And so I took some courses in film, but just to learn how, you know, to speak to the cinematographer or stuff like that. But I decided that's it. I have to, you know, to take the, you know, the shootings, at least of the hotel itself, before they sell it. And thanks God I did it, because if I would do the film today, I couldn't do it, you know, I mean, nothing. And also the alleys even, you know, every year, unfortunately, it's not like in Italy and many places which are protected. You know, I mean, I come to Venice today, it's like I came there 30 years ago, it's about the same, except for the tourists, but I mean the physical state of the place. And this place, no. When I was a child, you know, this place was not melancholic at all. I mean, but it was very quiet. I mean, you know, in a film, if you produce films, you know that what you do in a film, that you as you say, you want to convey the feeling that you had, and you use all the means to convey the feeling. Also the music, you know, which we can talk about it later, which is by Italian, of course, Salomone Rossi, the Italian composer. So actually, and this is the way I felt walking in the alleys when I was a child. This is exactly what I felt. And when I see the film, when you see the film, yeah, it was always quiet. You know, you can go in the alleys and you can really hear, you know, things coming out from the windows. Unfortunately, today, if somebody comes today to Tzfat, they would think that my film was, I was shooting it, I don't know, in Provence or in Toscana, I don't know where. Unfortunately, I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, absolutely, because you answered it very directly, because actually I think I felt what you explained. I felt that you had the feeling, or you had the knowledge that the hotel was going to be sold, and so there was a feeling of loss of sorts, and you transmitted it through the mood to me anyway. Willingly or unwillingly, I felt that something was going to be lost, and you explained that was going
amazing. Actually, it's amazing. I never thought it this way. Amazing. Yeah, it's interesting. It's the first time that everybody asked me, why did you make a film at all? Why you choose to make a film on that? And I said, if it was only to do with my, holistic or whatever approach to architecture, I would never do a film, because buildings, which there I tried to implement what I think is architecture all about. I wrote books, I published books, so I won't do a film. And if it was only for the memories and, of my grandmother and the place and all of these things, I don't think I would do also a film. But the thing that I wanted really, to integrate the two and look at the past from my present point of view, because you see, when I said that, I think that, my grandmother was a real Zen master. I mean, she never felt a Zen master. And when I was a child, and I never, regarded her as a Zen master. But from my present point of view, if I look back to the way that she was immersed, I say, and integrated in what she was doing, whitewashing the alley, or peeling the apples. I mean, the way she did it, and it was really like a meditation for her. So this is, of course, from my present point of view, the way I interpreted all these memories. So actually, the reason I did the film was really that I was interested, to have this interface between these two worlds, which was maybe the most difficult things to do for me, because it's two different things. Or that was the difficult task in the film, how to integrate these two things.
Congratulate you. I really loved the film. It transported me. And I thought, after watching the film, I thought, why should we discuss this? It's a sort of sacrilege. You should just see the film another time and let it sink in. And in that way, the film struck me as a parable of how it could be anywhere, but it was based partly on your own personal memories, but it was also about the life of the soul, which, even though it's not always explicit, is certainly the theme in Chris Alexander's work. So that was just wonderful. You said it, obviously there were words, there was the liturgical year, there was music from different traditions, but it was so clear. If you showed it to someone who knew nothing about, well, that's not true. I was thinking, if you showed the film to someone who knew nothing about Alexander or architecture or even spirituality, then he or she might get it. So I thought, well, if you ever stop being an architect, please be a filmmaker. But you really touched me. But I would rather look at the film than read another volume of Chris's work. It was really direct, and the connection between the buildings and the spaces with the individual and the archetypal soul was perfect. So
thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. It's quite amazing, when you are doing something, you don't know really how people will react and all of this. And, I was screening the film all over. In India, it was premiered in a festival, film festival, and it was in the States, and it was in Israel, and many other places. And really, I mean, it emphasizes what you say, because film has many layers, and people get connected to different layers according to their experiences and all. So I must say that, people from different cultures completely reacted in a very similar way to the feeling, which is maybe what I'm talking about, pattern language. I mean, the patterns really generate a very similar feeling, although it can be, you know, a piazza in Italy or France or the old city of Jerusalem, because the underlying structure is the same. So I think, you know, and also I must say that it's quite amazing, because most of the audience who came to watch the film were not many architects at all. Yeah, it was really the general public who, I remember in India, you know, I went many times to India and I screened it many times there, and he said, oh, it reminds me of my grandmother in the village that I grew up here near Mumbai. You know, it's universal. I mean, I took it from my place, but I mean, it can be any place.
Nili, if I can say, you and Jaap are telling something politically correct. So, will politics come back again? You're saying something universal exists. That seems like a kind of blasphemy nowadays, isn't it? Especially among architects. The fact that Jaap and you are saying something that is very unusual, especially in architectural culture. You're saying that there is something that is universal. You know what I mean?
It's true.
I know this is true, Jaap. I agree with you, but we are kind of heretic, isn't it?
What can we do? We just have to go on educating, you know, the people.
I have a question too. It relates to the question by Robin. Yesterday I had gave a speech here in Italy to 220 architects from the region of Brescia, the region of Veneto, Lombardy. And the point I was making was they requested me an opinion about the desolation of centers, so especially little centers, like little towns, like Cefat. We have a lot of little centers like Cefat in Italy, as you know.
Yeah.
And the entire Mediterranean is constellated with all these little centers. And they tend to be abandoned by people because they go to the big city, they enter an environment where they can have a job, etc., etc. Also, the rhythm of life in these places is not really fitting with the rhythm of contemporary life. And as many of you know, I and Sarah and I, we live in a center like that, and we like it very much. But the point is, Cefat is kind of fading away, if I understand. So the hotel has been sold, and you cannot recognize now the same place. What has happened to this place? And this connected to a second question. You have this traditional background, let's say. You have been growing when you were a child with your grandma, so you know this environment. You learned and absorbed a lot from that environment. And then you went so far away that you even started studying Buddhism. So in a way, this is a kind of going away from your center. No, it's a kind of travel outside. And then you, in this movie, it shows like this travel come back home. So you pass it through this experience of another culture, and then you come back to this universality of the culture of your grandma. This seems to me very interesting. This is also an element that is very deeply rooted in our Mediterranean culture. There is always this, you know, the story of the travel. We travel outside, we go outside. For example, Moses goes out to Egypt, and then he comes back and brings back his people to his country. Ulysses is the great myth of Western Europe, not only Western Europe, or the West and the Europe. So this guy goes away and then comes back. So you want to go back home. So my point is, and I give you the question that these people gave to me yesterday. How can we come back to these centers? It has a meaning to come back to these centers. Are we now in the travel? Are we traveling outside of the center to go back there? Or are we going back right now? What do you think about that?
When you talk about center, you talk about specific place that you have roots or whatever. I mean, this is what you
I refer to a work by Jaap Dawson. Jaap made a beautiful study about the center meant as a heart, the heart of a place that speak about the heart inside ourselves. You have even in Alexander speaks about centers. He gives a kind of mathematical definition. Yeah, but there are
something else. Yeah.
It's something else, but there are point of contact with this idea of a center, like a place where we feel home. It can be not necessarily a physical place. It can be an attitude. It can be, you know, the scene in the movie where you are sitting down. I mean, the actor who impersonate you, and you are in a way in the bowl where the apples fall down and surround you like in a beautiful merry-go-round.
Okay.
So the center is something that is physical, in a sense, is a mathematical center, geographical, ethnographical, cultural, etc., etc. It's something that call you back in a way. So my question is, how do you see it? You teach, you make movie, books, etc., and you interact with young architects, the ones who are building the centers of the future in a way. What would you suggest to them about this trip, going out, going in, etc.?
I'll tell you about my trip, and then we can come to any conclusion. You see, when I started, even as a student of architecture, you know, I started at the AA in London, and then I went to Berkeley. But I was really always interested in two things, which I put forward, you know, at the beginning of the film. What really makes you place that, you know, feels at home? I mean, what is the secret of these places that makes us feel at home, that we actually want to return to again and again? Not just, you know, iconic architecture that we go and see once in a while. And what is the methodology or the way or the state of mind that the creator has to be in order to create and generate these kind of places, which I was absolutely sure that it can't, you know, I mean, you can't create these kind of places with the state of mind that I would say the general architects, you know, sitting on these days on the computer, but you know, really remote from the place, from the sounds, from the site, and all of this. I mean, and so first of all, of course, I was looking in the scientific world until I found Alexander, and I thought that Alexander really gave me the answers, you know, to the questions, because I think that his whole research and the pattern language, and you know, we don't have time now to get into it, and to the way that you work on the site, actually, and any project is a sort of balance between the patterns and the forces which actually act on the site itself. In that sense, I really, and this I implemented in all my projects. I mean, this way of thinking, this way of working, etc. But then I thought that Buddhism, and when I say Buddhism, I'm not talking about the spiritual stuff and, you know, obviously not the New Age stuff. I'm talking about science of Buddhism. Now, Buddhism, talking about, you know, holism, a holistic approach, the interrelationships between the parts and the whole, they are talking about all these things. So I thought that, you know, getting involved in all these studies really has also something to answer, you know, my questions. So then I went, you know, to India, and I was really attending a lot of seminars with the Dalai Lama and many other scholars, which were very relevant, because I mean, the fundamentals of Buddhism, which of course we can't go into it now, is very similar. And basically, I want to tell you something that Chris Alexander was very much influenced. You know, when they asked him, how did you get to the pattern language? I mean, to the whole thing of the pattern, he said, after I learned the I Ching, you know, the book of changes, because it's always to do with the interrelationships between the parts and the whole, etc. So, okay, but then when I went to India and all of I said, wow, you know, I mean, the way that, you know, that I work on the site, and really the reason that I work on the site, or any architect work really on the site, is really to be very aware on the voices and things that happens on the site itself, that you have to relate in your design process. And you have to be very focused, very immersed. And this is very different, you know, from the normal way. I mean, look at students today, you know, I really, when I went to teach, I really had to shake them. I got students from third year, fourth year. I really had to shake them. I mean, they had no clue about what I'm talking about, because the education they get is, you know, that you can sit in Italy and design a site in New York, and basically doesn't matter. I mean, because it's not related to anything. I'm not talking, it's not related, tuned to the human, nothing to do with, you know, like human architecture, but so then I said, wow, you know, I mean, and when you talk about this show that, you know, sitting on the site and actually focusing on the view where I wanted to locate exactly the window of the house, you know, it was opposite the Sea of Galilee. It's basically the same like my grandmother, you know, it was really like she was meditating, you know, peeling the apples. And as I mentioned, she didn't have to go to a Zen center, you know, all around the world, you know, to look for mindfulness and all of these things. She did it on you know, on the basis of everyday life, like this. This is the way she did the things, and I think that this is why things were so. I mean, you felt this. I mean, very emotional, and I mean, the things she did were really pure and perfect because of this state of mind that she was. So when I went all around, you know, all these places and the scientific world and the Dalai Lama, and oh, wait a minute. Although as a child, you know, you are like a sponge, you are not aware of anything. You just absorb the things. But now, from my present point of view, I can analyze it and see that maybe I absorbed all these things, you know, unconsciously when I was a child. So if you think about this, this is the route that, you know, that I went to.
Last time I went to Turkey, I went to this great meeting, all the young architects of Turkey, and they were showing with a lot of pride these projects that they made when in London, New York, Amsterdam, etc. And these projects were all the same. And they were all the same as their colleagues in Amsterdam, London, New York. That's exactly the point. And I was pulling their legs, showing them pictures that I took here and there in Istanbul of self-built architecture, saying, you have your Goldie here, look at that. Learn from your taxi drivers, you know, that build their own little station, etc. So that's the point. But these people need also to learn the modernism and the most the neo-parametricism, etc., to come back to understand better their tradition or not, or they should just focus on their tradition. You know what I mean? You have to come out.
Look,
to give voice, to give a language to what you have learned in an unconscious way, in a way. So I think that your trip allowed, your trip outside, let's say, allowed you to understand better your home.
Yeah, but I want to tell you something. Two things. You know, when I gave a lecture in Beijing, in China, in Tsinghua University, when I published my first book, you know, I was launching it, and I went to. We told them, you know, that it's a pity. All they want now is to be like, you know, like everywhere. They are not basing, you know, their architecture on any traditional patterns or anything. And there is no identity, of course. I mean, if you look at the journals and you don't see the name of the place, you don't know if it's in Tel Aviv, in Paris, London, because it's the same. See, on the other hand, I want to tell you something. We have to be careful because the point is that, or the traditional architecture or the past does not have a monopoly on beauty. This is very important because, you know, they said, oh, okay. I mean, when we talk about traditional buildings and villages and stuff like that, it's always nice and we feel good. And the modern architecture is very alienated, of course, and we feel very alienated in this environment. It's not a human environment, that is, which is very important to understand. This is the importance of the pattern language. The important thing is to understand that if we use the patterns and the way of doing, the art of doing the things, we can get today modern architecture where we can feel also at home. So it's not that beauty and all this nice feeling belongs to the past only and to traditional, because then it's hopeless. I mean, there is no point in doing anything. And I tell you something, you know, when people get into, I just give you an example because I think it's a good example. When people get to buildings that I do, they said, oh, it looks like a renovation of an old building. Okay, I mean, like if, you know, it's not a new modern building. And because can't imagine, and sorry, I don't want to be arrogant, of course. You see, this is another way of them to explain that they really feel, have, you know, some good feeling in the building. So it can't be a modern building, because if they have a good feeling, it means that it's, you know, a renovated old building. That's basically the point. One went into a library that I designed, all of them new buildings. And he said, wow, it feels like a synagogue, like a church, like he couldn't really give any definition to his feeling. And of course he knew it's not a synagogue and it's not a church, but he had some spiritual, whatever you want to call it, feeling in you know, in this building, and it's a modern building. So we have to be careful. I mean, it's not really making duplicate or imitate the past. This is not the point. It's like, you know, when they say organic architecture, they make buildings like flowers and animals and stuff like this. This is not organic architecture, you know. I mean, so it's the same. So I learned from, you know, if you analyze the patterns of Tzfat and you analyze the patterns of, I don't know, Siena or any place that you really feel good in any time, in any culture, if it's in China, Japan, Italy, France, you can see that there is something which is a superstructure, underlying thing, which is common to all of them. And if you take that common stuff and you implement it, and you know, now, even with new materials, you can use plastic, you can use glass, you can use anything. I mean, you don't just have to do mud bricks, if you understand what I mean, but the way you do it. And I think if you look at the properties, which are very nice, presented in Chris' books, The Nature of Order, you know, all the 14 properties, if you use these properties, the centers, the other ones, so there are 4 volumes, but anyway, if you apply these properties, you know, even with modern materials and stuff like that, and you take very much care on the details and the interrelationship between the details and the whole and all of these things, you don't have to go back, you know, to what was done, you know, 100 years ago. So Nili, this is very important.
Ancient people didn't know that they were ancient. That's what I always say to my students. So did the classics. The classics didn't know they were classics. So we can be the same, I mean, in our own way. I would ask, so
I was just thinking also, thanks to the film, that the film gave us a parable, a paradigmatic picture of someone who was capable of making the patterns. And am suspicious, given our time and our, what do you call it, our universal belief system in progress and the spirit of the age as a god and gain and all of those other horrible things. I don't see how you can really so-called implement the patterns without having the attitude that Nili displayed in the film that she had as a girl, that her grandmother had, and that, which is entirely archetypal. And it's just very difficult in our time because we're not, at least in the so-called developed world, we're not building with our hands anymore. I mean, Hassan Fatih tried it and it wasn't so popular either. So I think it's not just implementing the patterns. I think it's implementing the awareness, the faith, the connection with your soul, and then you almost automatically implement the patterns.
Yeah, I agree absolutely of every word that you say. You know, I remember when I was in Berkeley, you know, it's very difficult when you talk with students or anyone, people tend also always to say, you know, we think like this, we think like this, we think like this. They don't really, I mean, we think this is nice, we don't think, I mean, as if it is really a subjective matter, but they never refer to the way they feel. And I remember an exercise that we had in Berkeley, when Chris wanted the students to be aware what is the difference between sitting on this window or that window, okay? And it's not a matter of we think it's nice, we think it's trendy, we think it's modern, or none of this. But what do you really feel the difference between sitting here and sitting there? And where would you like to sit for the next 100 years? Near this window or near that window? You see, I think that like in everything, you know, I mean, the basic thing really, as you said, I mean, first of all, you need the will to change, the will to do maybe something which is beneficial, you know, to people and the way they use the environment. And then, you know, you have to look what are the means to do it. And I think that the means to do it is exactly like my mother was whitewashing the alley in light blue.
I'd like to go back to this point, but think of non-definition Nili was talking about before, and this aspect of feelings and getting connected with awareness, etc., etc. They are all kind of usually meant as subjective statuses. For example, Angel Shlomo was a collaborator of Alexander. He broke up, in the end, broke in a very bad way, saying in the end, when it's about deciding what is right, what is the feeling, right feeling, people may have different opinion, different feelings. So the final point was ask Chris. So he was accusing, in a way, Christopher Alexander of giving too much relevance to his own subjectivity. And in a way, it's the position of the famous architect has become kind of the model of Archistar from Holland. What's his name, Sarah? Rancolas, who say, let's have a party, because nothing has a meaning. So in the end, all we have to do is just playing around. That's why this point that you are making is very important to me. And I would dare to suggest the point that maybe it's not just a matter of feeling, it's a matter of the language expressing that feeling. Because what we are lost nowadays is a common language. So the possibility for people to express their feeling, because of course they have that feeling, but maybe they don't have the words for expressing that. And if they cannot express it, they cannot recognize it. They cannot become aware. So my question is, if they talk about education, I come back to the first question, how to teach people to understand this. and to build it, because it's not that we have to teach anything to anybody. People have already inside themselves the capability, the sensitivity, etc. But how to help them unfold this in their own way. And maybe this has to do with something that goes beyond our possibilities as individuals, because Nili, Jaap can do a lot of things. They teach to a lot of students, etc., etc. But the problem is, if there is not a social shared language where we can acknowledge these feelings, acknowledge the existence of a center, for example, it's kind of a difficult battle. That's why I'm very interested in that. Maybe Robin has something related to that. I don't know.
You see, the thing is, what I learned from teaching, it was not very easy, as you say, to convey the things to other people. Because, as you say, first of all, you have to create a common language in order people to understand each other. But I think that, you know, like in Buddhism, you know, they said that you have to practice yourself the thing. I mean, it's not enough to listen to teachers and masters and all of that. You have to experience this. And not only that, you know, His Holiness the Dalai Lama really is very, I would say, open-minded and very modern in a way, very just, you know, he says that if science, for instance, will prove something which is contradictory to what the science of Buddhism think, they will change. I mean, so what I'm saying is that, you know, I tell you how I did it. You know, I took a bunch of students, okay, and I told them, first of all, to go and analyze, I don't know, buildings that intuitively they feel good in them, intuitively, without knowing why and all of this, okay? And see buildings that they really like and places that they don't feel good. And then try to identify what is common in all these buildings. This is the way that the pattern language was done as a field study for 12 years, yes? Go and see if you can identify, which is not an easy task, the common things between all these places that you really feel good. I mean, that you really want to come back again and again. And slowly, you know, they realized, you know, the whole notion of patterns, for instance. You see, in the past, it was like rules of thumb. You know, it came, you know, in traditional architecture, from generation to generation, you know, things were like rules of thumb. I mean, they didn't study or anything like this, and it went like this. It was obvious. But now, yeah, I mean, we lost actually, you know, we lost all of these things. So we have to bring them into birth again. And I think that the best way really for people is to experience. I mean, even minor things. Listen, you see, when people draw a plan of a building, they don't have a sense what is 1 meter width or 2 meters. If it's a lane, or it's a street, or if it's a corridor, or if it's a room. And I was keep telling them, listen, you don't draw one line on a paper. Before you go yourself, see what is 1 meter, 2 meter, how you feel when it's 1 meter, 2 meter, like this, you know. So then slowly, you know, they appreciated the methodology, at least. I mean, they knew that there is no sense in doing sort of abstract projects, you know, these conceptual projects which have no meaning. But I think that the important thing is, in order to create the common language, is really people have to experience themselves the reality that you are talking about. And because just with words, to experience it themselves, yeah.
Okay, so
it's not easy. I tell you, it's not easy. And also sometimes, you know, if you talk to students, you teach them, they don't get the point. But after a few years, you know, I remember a student came to me after many years. I met him in the street and said, you know, we were now in Italy. We were walking in the streets. It was in Italy, and we understood what you were talking about 5 years before. Like this, you know, I don't think it's a push button procedure. When I came to Berkeley, and I studied with Chris, and it was okay. It was also postgraduate studies already. Until I actually worked with him on the site, and we did some beautiful village in Israel. We did it together. I didn't absolutely understand what he was talking, why it's important. And after we were working on the site for a few months in the Galilee in Israel, and we did this village, I realized how important and the way it works, you know? So I think it's really only through practice, yeah.
I wanted to go back to the film, because for us who's viewing it, I saw it only yesterday, so it's still very fresh for me. I know you did it a few years ago, but it's still very fresh, and it's almost I want to inhabit it with you a little bit longer, and especially the curiosity that you have begin to answer to my question. I almost want to go further with that. So if we see the film, and I see it as a context of biourbanism, what is the difference if on the biourban fabric of CET in 1950 to 2021? The difference in the biourban fabric.
When you say biourban fabric, please explain me more what you mean by that. I'm not absolutely acquainted with the definition.
Okay, well, I could say the urban fabric, but I don't want to leave it. I say biourban because I want to include more than just the physical element. I will also want to include how people live it, inhabit it, how. So in general, how is it really different? Because if you say, if you ask the same question maybe to Stefano, how is Artena different 1950 to 2021? Probably not very much. Sefat?
The major problem there that there was no really any, you know, protecting rules, you know, so people did whatever they want. I never looked at what they have and say, okay, if we want now to add another story or another balcony or whatever, it has to enhance what is existing there and to relate to what's there, nothing at all. And there was no one who actually took care of it from above even. But the other thing is, maybe, I'm not sure, you see, the demographic situation in this city changed almost 180%. I mean, all the people like my family generations ago, who were, you know, who were there, you know, of course, most of them died. And the new generation even left the city, and then came a whole new population to this city. It's not really the people who, like in Europe, I think, I see generations by generations. I don't know, we have friends in Venice. They live in the same house that the grandmother and grandfather and we were there, and it's generation and generation keep in the place. So maybe they have more sense, they more care about the place. These new people who came, first of all, you know, it's amazing, but it's very Orthodox people, very Orthodox. They came there and they really flooded the city. Orthodox people, I don't know why, they don't care about the public space at all, at all. For them, it's the door of their apartment, if at all. I mean, they don't care less. and they do whatever they want, and nobody takes care. And the whole fabric and the materials and everything, you know, you come, and I didn't see it in all the areas I saw it a lot, of course, in China. In these places, they are demolishing everything. But in Europe, I don't think it's like this. I mean, I spent time in, for instance, in Delft, in the Netherlands, and it's very nice. I mean, sometimes they have new neighborhood outside, like, you know, in Paris, they have the Défense and all these places. But still in La Défense, if you look, the residential building have something in common with the traditional patterns of the residential houses in Paris. So in fact, it's, I mean, it's just, you know, horrible. And you see, I can compare what was and what is today. Maybe if people come today, they also say, wow, because there are very beautiful synagogues there, and there is kind of spiritual feeling maybe there still. So maybe, but for me, it's completely another world, because I can feel the very subtle, you know, differences and see that it really changed a lot. But I think it's also really to do with the demographic and the new population who just didn't care less. I remember I was in Venice, my husband was sabbatical there, and we lived there. And our landlord said that if you paint the shutters, not in, I don't know, brown, but in green, immediately the inspector will come and you have to change it. So
the young architects, because we have a few here. So for example, from Sweden, there is somebody there. I am curious about Anna. What do you think about that? What are your impressions with the movie?
Yeah, so I've been listening just to keep up with you, what you're saying. And first of all, thank you for the film. It was really nice to see it, and also having in my memory my visit in Athena. That's a few years back now, but I still keep on working with those ideas that I got introduced to. I work as an architect here in Sweden, but I'm also an artist, and I do more of these phenomenological studies of different places, preferably out in the nature. I live just outside of Gothenburg, so it's more of a forest and ocean than the sea where I live. And I try to implement those ideas that I started to learn from you guys, and I would say I felt very at home in your film, that I could feel similarities to what I see working here in Sweden. And what I think about when I work, and both as an architect and when I try and immerse myself in different places with all those ideas in mind, how it's not only the structures, but also society and the things that we cannot touch that's changing. So I was thinking a lot about when you say that it's changed completely and people don't care, how is the sort of the relation that you see on how society is developing connected to how the physical structures are supporting that society or not? I think that would be interesting to hear your opinion on how can these structures sort of adapt, or how can society adapt to the structures?
Good question.
I don't know. It's you know, it's a kind of question that I'm asking myself, not only on architecture, but you know, when I see the TV and sorry, the bullshit that there is on, and I said, wow, I mean, what the hell is this? I mean, before we used to look at the BBC One, BBC Two, these really good programs, and now it's all, you know, nothing. I mean, what's going on? Because yeah, I think that, you know, the values of, you know, of society today, or generally speaking, of course, has changed. and generated, you know, I mean, it's really about money, it's about many things, but not how really people feel, you know, in the environment and all of this. And even, you know, I remember one of my students, when I was teaching all of this and how to make, you know, more human environment and all of that, he asked me, said, you know, I was amazed actually, because he was only a student. And he said, but what can you do if you are hired by a developer who has completely different approach? You know, he wants to earn money, doesn't care about your, you know, centers and colors and human architecture and all what you're talking about and this and that and that. What can you do? So, you know, when I was very young, maybe like you, I tried to change the world and to fight with all these people, and you know, with all my flags coming from Berkeley, and this, you know, trying to educate all of these developers and influence them and convince them and all of these things. And then I realized that it's a waste of time. And first of all, I kept on working like I worked. I worked on the site, and it's my business. It's not their business. They want to see the end result. Okay, I'm working on the site. It's my business. But then I thought, well, you know, he wants to make money. Fair enough. That's his job. The developer wants to make money. Fine. So we have in our role to make the best and to pull as much as we can with our attitude, you know, because the thing is the attitude, you know. If we have a good attitude, we have to push for it. And we must be aware that there is a clash. I mean, it's not easy, I tell you. And I lost a lot of clients because of this. But it doesn't mean that you have to give up. And the basic thing is education, of course. And I think that also, if you believe that there are still enough people who want different architecture, better architecture, or whatever, and they deserve it, we have to do the best, you know, to provide them that. You know, I don't believe that the people will reject, you know, if they give them, you know, I mean, only these copy-paste buildings. You know, I think they will appreciate, and it's not easy, but what I'm saying is that slowly, I think, first of all, of course, we have to educate the architects, you know, to have more morals and not just to work for money, but it's a matter of education. I mean, from the kindergarten, you have to educate people how it's important, you know, the environment, and how it's important to have places that you really feel at home and all of this. And slowly, they will demand it also.
It's about designing the invisible in a way. I have, because I'm also considering time, I'm terrorized by an eventual question by Urshka. We have two other brilliant architects. I don't know, even the term architect is a bit difficult when talking about them. One is Urshka, who is from Slovenia, and the other one is Marek, that is from Slovakia. They are totally different countries, of course. But I'm curious about their opinion about that. But
hello, thank you. I actually come from the field of landscape architecture. So I'm very much landscape.
Okay.
I did go to do my master studies in architecture and urbanism just to see how architects turn to the question of building space, since I think landscape architecture comes from space first, like this Genius Loci and stuff like that. And I discovered I was very much disappointed that they acted to the site as tabula rasa. I thought that probably they do analysis of context and stuff like that, but in the end, the results didn't show sensibility towards space. And I was very saddened by it. But also I was very happy to meet Stefano at our university, to get introduced to biourbanism or this kind of other practices of maybe acupuncture of the tissue and stuff like that, but also reading other books, which made me also deprived. For example, Bachelard, I tried to envision or visualize how to settle in a house while I was living on 13th floor of an apartment building, you know, and I tried to shoot the roots down to the basement and into the ground. I tried to, you know, he's speaking about childhood and how you organize your memories. It's a spatial memory as well, topographic memory, but also within a house or within a home. And I didn't have that actually, you know, because I was in a small apartment. I didn't have basement, you know. I mean, the basement was communal basement of all apartments. It was not the basement. It was not so scary. We didn't have an attic. We didn't have, you know, these old drawers that would speak of ancestry or of other people or of making things by hands. And I felt compulsed by it, I mean, confused by it, how to now organize my childhood into this environment that is built in stories. And also your film reminded me of my grandmother as well, because she lived in a village. So I had this, I could displace these memories. I mean, I could feel there at home, at her place, basically. I could envision more of having my roots there, or having some more phenomenological sense of a place. But I want to return to the question with modern architecture or in cities where we live now. When you are up high, you have, like, I was raised up in an apartment building living on 13th floor. I had this beautiful view over the city, really nice view, but I had no ground connection. And I felt like in your movie you were constantly walking around the streets or the courtyard, and that's ground floor. And you have much better connection with your home, where you can step in just through the door and not having to use the elevator and go, you know, through different locks and stuff like that. It's much more fluid, and you don't have a space of boundary of your home and of public space, perhaps. And you might call public space as your home as well, or vice versa. You have this courtyard which is semi-public or something similar, or you have friends coming much more easily into your home than into an apartment, for example. And also, like, this is referring to like all favelas or in India, these settlements where they try to, for example, build a block to push all the people into living in high-rise buildings, but they did not succeed because all the exchange happens on the street. And I think we're losing that very much in cities in general. So I don't know, it's basically, I don't know if it's a question, but how do you feel about this problem, or do you see it as a problem at all?
Yeah, well, I think that in any density that you have, when you do a project, you can deal with it in a different way. You see, when you do high-rise building, for instance, you need a lot of space in between the buildings. Okay, you have to leave a lot of space. So I think, I mean, I had, you know, I had to propose a complex of residential building, and if I would do the ordinary way, yeah, it was like an ordinary condominium, you know, high-rise, whatever. But you can always suggest another way, more closely to what you said. I'm not saying that, you know, it's a one-story building, but still, you can have lower buildings, and then, you know, with inner courtyards and stuff like that. because you can you can put more buildings without open space in between them if they are lower, not many floors. And then I don't know if you if you send me an email, I'll send you an example that I did in Tel Aviv, which was really in the city of Tel Aviv, and I could do also, and I did internal street, and also I really wanted to achieve what you say is the connection between the apartment and the I would say the public space around it. So what we did is like open staircases that actually connect each flat from the ground, and it comes to like external balcony, which is like a courtyard, but on the second and third floor. So it has the feeling that you actually are connected to the ground, and you come through a private, it's not like a lobby when you get into but so sometimes you can find another solution, but it's not always the case. But I think that in any, even in an ordinary condominium or apartment building, if you look at my website, you will see examples which I'm not saying, I mean, I didn't have, I mean, it is a very high density. It's in the center of Tel Aviv, another one. So even if, imagine that the staircase, like in the, in the past, it had big windows, in the staircase, that people would like to walk on the stairs and not go on the elevator because it's nice. They have huge windows facing the street, a lot of light, and then they get to a nice place where they enter the apartments and all of these things, So in any situation, you have to make the best of it, because the way today they do that, you have a lobby and then you enter, or you don't even go to the lobby. From the parking lot underground, you go to the lift, to the elevator, and you get to the flat. There is no hierarchy. There is no really, connection between. I mean, it's really. So yeah, I mean, so in each situation, you have to see what you can make the best of it, and I believe there are all kinds of solutions. If you look at my book, the act of creation in the spirit of a place, there are many examples. Not all of them were built, but there are many examples. For instance, if you take London, London, you have these row houses, which are connected one to the other. I don't know how they call semi-detached or row houses. It's quite high density because it's all connected, and each one has a small courtyard and stairs and stuff like that. And if they put, so like in one street, they have like tenants, the amount of tenants that they have in one high-rise, okay? But when they make high-rise, they have to leave a huge space between the high-rise. I mean, this is by law. So it's the same. So, and the main reason that, many kind of architecture is created is because it's easier. It's easier for all, the developer and the contractor, it's easier for them to, I don't know, to
It's
construct
easier
this.
also, Nili, it's easier also because clients are not asking for something better, isn't it? Especially if it is the market. I think Marek has something about that, or not?
But I don't blame the clients. I think that the clients, if they would get something better, they will appreciate it. But if you give them, but this is what they have. This is what they can get. So what can they do? Some of them, yes. I mean, I'm not generalizing. I don't want to generalize, but there are enough clients who would appreciate if you give them a better place to live in.
Marek, how are your clients?
It depends. Some are good, some are not so good. So at first, thank you for the film. It was very good, and it remembered me my childhood, but also my stay in Australia. I experienced there Glenn Murcutt masterclass, and we were there also thinking about the site, about the spirit of the place, and we also experienced a meeting with Aboriginal elder, and he was explaining us their connection to the land and how important is for them the land, and when they intervene to the land, it's really a very big decision for them. And in your film, you were talking that when you design, you look for the best places on the site and you leave them empty.
Yes.
So this is also what they were teaching us on this
Where did you study? Sorry.
This was in Australia.
Are you now in Australia?
No. I was there in 2017.
I see. And which university? In where?
This was just 2 weeks master by Glenn Murcutt.
I see. Okay.
I wanted to ask you a question about the film. There was a scene with peeling the apples, and I think this was there was a link with creation of architecture. At least I somehow got it that there you wanted to make some link with creation of architecture. Maybe you can you explain what you meant by that?
Well, the reason that I make this association between the peeling of the apples and me working on the site, as you saw, as I explained before, it's actually in this specific scene was to do with how you actually being really integrated and immersed in what you are doing. Because you see, when you are on the site, really, if you experience that, believe me, it's true. It takes you really to another place. I mean, if you want or if you don't want, it's not like sitting in the office and designing at all. If you are there, you are really pulled by what's happening there. And you are really with the voices and the light and the view and everything that happens there. And it doesn't matter if it's an urban space, you know, it can be in the middle of the city, or the same methodology, or outside, you know, in the rural place or whatever, it doesn't matter. But you are really aware very much about all what's happening there, and you forget all the, you know, misconceptions and what you saw and the journals and all of these things that you want to, you know, to imitate or whatever. You are really pulled on the reality of the site. Now, when she was peeling the apples, really, I mean, if you look, you know, she was sitting there, and she was like within the apple, you know. I mean, really, because, you know, it's not like peeling apples. I mean, she could also take a machine to peel the apples. I mean, but for her, it was, yeah, it was like a, you know, meditation. But look, and let me tell you, it's a hotel. She had to peel 120 apples. It's not one apple. It's 100. She was sitting there for hours, you know, peeling 120, and each apple in one shot, you saw. I mean, in one, I don't know how you call it. It's not, you know, doing like this, like we do it. You know, it was like this, like this, like this, 120 apples. Can you imagine? It's amazing. It's actually amazing. And I think this is the way that art any art, you know. I mean, it's like the Tanga painter, you know, the Tibetan Tanga painter who did this, you know, these paintings that they do. It's actually amazing. And I think that, you know, if any art would be done with this state of mind, I think the world will look different.
I suspect we have finished the architect, except I see an MM that has a familiar face, but I can tell myself. So I think she's the last architect of the list.
I'm not an architect, so I'm not gonna add anything. But if you tell me to say something, I'm in Ayvalık, in the Aegean, North Aegean side of Turkey, which is a place that I come for 30 years already, since the beginning of 20s. So, and then childhood. I mean, I think it connects us immediately, and you find your true feelings, you know, embedded into your childhood. So when you go to places that you went in your childhood, immediately you connect with these things. And sometimes it is sad, as it is in your film. I agree with Robin. I found it melancholic, and then I watched it, half of it, I guess, with my 8-year-old niece here. And she really liked the way you tell the story. You put a young girl in there. So she was asking about it, like why she's there, why she's alone, and all these things. And I gave very, you know, I didn't want to, because they were attached to the melancholy also, but I didn't want them to go there.
I'm amazed.
So
I'm amazed about this Melancholia. I mean, I mean, you know, this is the place that really I felt so happy, you know, in this place. I mean, otherwise I wouldn't do the film. It was a place that you know, really filled my, you know, my whole world.
Yeah.
And
we see that.
Not a melancholy. I mean, it's like, you know, when I walk at night, 12 o'clock at night in Venice, and nobody is in the street. Nobody. It's empty. You know. So, in winter, imagine, and nobody in the street. I don't think it's melancholy. I mean, you know, maybe because it was not hectic with people. Yeah, this is something else, but it's not that the situation that was reconstructed showed a melancholy reality that I experienced when I was a child. It's not that.
So what I'm experienced in here, I came to finish my work here, and I've been going around in all ruins and everything, which is almost 150 years ago. This was less maybe, all Greek town. So after the war, everything has changed, and the culture that they had forgotten. And you see that forgottenness, you know, it's just people are not carrying them. So all these spiritual places, especially, everything is ruining them, the weather and the treasure hunters or whatever. So
where is that? What is the name of the place again, please?
It's called Ayvalık here, Ayvalık, which is where, yeah, northern Aegean side of Turkey. Yes, basically in Istanbul, but I spent some time here through the pandemic.
I see. I know, because I was last year in the film was screened in the experimental film festival in Istanbul. It was so nice.
and it resembled me too. I have a friend who lives now in Berlin, and she made a movie movie about architecture, that when Turkish workers went to Berlin, they needed shelters, so the government gave them these places which had very little means. So she went through archiving books and photos, and she talked to people who lived on that buildings, but maybe still. So I've seen very similar. Maybe you, you will see it also. So this is, we, as someone once said, we're losing our cities. We lost Istanbul, you know, like the Marmara Sea is dead now. So it's so sad, really. So yeah, I think
Malek, I think that we need more art together, meeting together, eating together, wine and fire. Also, with all the friends here, because of course the fire of internet is not the same thing. So to have something invisible, we need something very physical and very flashy in a sense. We have.
I was telling someone about you and what we did in Artena, actually, because there are some very small villages around here, and people doesn't know what to do except tourism. So we have to talk a lot, I think, like, and then because I'm experiencing something here, and then we have to just connect these things, because what is happening is everywhere is very ugly, and then we have to start somewhere.
Once upon a time, I was eating architects for breakfast, and now I'm eating tourists for breakfast. Anyway, we have hosts from Italy too. Grazia Maria, Sara, and Marina. I don't know if you want to ask something or share something with us.
I want to ask you something about the blue color in the film, because the voice said that this color is suggested by the Kabbalah, like the meaning of purification. That reminds me the idea of change, of a soul change. But the idea that I feel during the vision of the film is an idea of continuity, something that turn and return, and they make the same, and the vision of the whole, in which some parts come from the past and the present and gave a continuous present. It seems like a contradiction. I don't know.
I don't really see what is the connection between the two things that you said. I mean, why it has to be connected at all.
I haven't understand why. I ask you the real meaning of this situation, because I haven't understand really.
No, it's color which you can see in all the Mediterranean, because it has different meaning in different cultures. I mean, the blue and the you know, in the light blue you see it in Spain and in Italy and in Greece, of course. It has different meanings. I mean, yeah, in Sfat it was really, you know, one of the two colors. You know, there is the white and the blue, which is mentioned, you know, in the Kabbalah. It's something which, you know, which purifies, which connects you to the heavenly, etc. You know, and also in other cultures, and also in Israel, they said that it is against devils, whatever. And so this was the color that traditionally, you know, the houses, the doors, were painted with. So
the title of the film, huh?
Yeah, and the alley she whitewashed, because to whitewash the whole alley near the hotel every Easter. It's not Easter, Pascha. Yeah. So this is the name of the film.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The blue color is used here also very much in the houses and in the churches. So I think that was related because I worked on that color also, why it is so common. I think it is it's the spirituality that blue is connected to.
Because the voices in the film named the Kabbalah, and the voices says that means purification.
Yes.
Okay. The girls paint, no? Every time, and I was thinking that there was something more that you want to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you see, in whitewashing, it's like it's really like peeling the apples. It's actually to do with the activity, the state of mind of the activity. It's not really the end result, but the way that, you know, she did the things, and it really brought her like to enlightenment. You know, the way she did it, it's like, you know, she got enlightened by it. And so this is actually, you know, there are different things for different reasons that I showed, and this, and the apples, and also the way that she was doing the rolls, you know. It's to do with the way that she was, the art of making, that actually brings you to enlightenment. You're so into it, and it somehow, you know, yeah.
Need another question from Grazia Maria. She wanted to talk.
Well,
trying to.
I am.
We are overcoming. We are going. It's taking a lot of time, but I mean, it's worth it. So.
For
it's
me,
very interesting.
It's okay for me. I enjoyed.
I don't have much to say, but I must say that I was really impressed. I am from Rome, and I am a friend of Chiara Peri. I don't know if you know her, and so she told me and other friends that it was very interesting theme. I teach English. I'm about to retire, but I studied history of art and also a bit of ethnology. And I did find the film extremely interesting. I should say, in a way, a bit, how do you say, enigmatic, in the sense that it wasn't all so transparent. It was something that you had to, I mean, kind of dig deep into it, you know. And it does teach me the fact that we are, in fact, often living separated from the space we're living in. I mean, we're like fragmented. Well, this film really shows you this belonging of the persons to the places. There's this meaning, right, between the place, the persons, and the activities. Everything is meaningful and is organic. Is I mean, there's a how do you say, living in a place that is functional to your soul, to your and is of course connected to community life. We have lost all this, so it really invites the person to find a different atmosphere, to find a different not atmosphere, to find a different dimension in life. This is only a reflection I made on the film, and of course there are also religious meanings I mean, religiously open, you know, to any kind of interpretation, like the ones that Marina was pointing out. This is all I can say, but
thank you. Yeah, I enjoy very much what you said. I really appreciate that very much. By the way, I will really appreciate, you know, to keep in contact with all of you when this pandemic will over. You know, maybe we can meet, collaborate, and meet. Maybe thanks to Stephanie, you know, he will arrange, you know, a physical meeting that we can really do something in a physical place and not like this. And I would really like to be in contact. And I'm very impressed by the fact that that it's people are engaged in different disciplines. You know, I like it a lot. I mean, the idea. I think it's very beneficial to the discussion also.
Nili Portugali, I think we will meet again in person, possibly. It will be
yeah, you have to, you invite all the people to your beautiful village.
Most of them have been here already, so they may find it boring. We can organize something even in Israel, who knows? But whatever, we'll see. We have plans for Turkey and Greece and maybe Syria this year, but we will see what we can do.
Yeah, Syria, I'm not sure that I can come. It's one-way ticket. For me, it's one-way ticket. So maybe you better do it in Turkey or Greece or Italy or whatever. Yeah.
The world is one. The world is one. So thank you very much, Nili, for this.
Listen, thank you all. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate, you know, Stephanie, your efforts, and I really liked a lot, you know, the discussion that we have. And yeah, I hope I meet all of you one day, you know, somewhere here or there. You are most welcome. If you happen to be in Israel, give me a call and we can meet and, you know.
Meanwhile, of course, we have the Biourbanism website is available. The journal Biourbanism is available for you and for everybody who participate here. So if you have any comments, something you want to write, you want to put down your ideas, etc., we are very happy to host all this material, because I think it's important also to have places where you can put together this kind of ideas. So what Sarah and I are trying to do with this series of webinars is to put together minds and souls, let's say, that are alike. Alike doesn't mean that you speak the same language or you do the same things. It means that you have this kind of connection to what we really need. So it's a way of building that language I was referring to before. And all of you, I mean, all people present here, I have that kind of connection in a way or another. So everybody in a different way. So one of the best theoretical of this connection, in my opinion, is Jaap. Jaap has this way, but even he had difficulty sometimes. I remember I was talking about Jaap yesterday during my class, explaining this very funny story that he told me once, that he used to teach architecture of the sacred architecture in Delft. And of course, we are talking about the less religious country in Europe, possibly Holland. And every time he starts his class, the first day of the university, there is some student raising his hand, asking him, "You have first to demonstrate that God exists." So,
but listen, I want to correct you. You know, the most beautiful synagogue I've seen in Europe is in Amsterdam, the Portuguese one. So yeah, God is maybe there. No, really beautiful, beautiful. I've spent once, you know, we have the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and we went, you know, to this synagogue in Amsterdam. It was one of the most amazing experiences that I had. Amazing.
Such also some quality sometimes.
What?
So we will have to do, Nili, we have to organize something here so we can pass the night talking and drinking wine together. It would be very fun and very nice. Anyway, please keep in touch. And if you have a question, you have the email of Nili to contact her directly. Keep in touch also with us at Biourbanism for what we are gonna keep going. If you have suggestions or idea to things we could do together, I would be very appreciated. Because as you understand, that's what we are going to try to do during this period. And we hope that soon we can do it in person and avoid these screens and connection for something more personal and more probably functional. Thank you very much to everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
to
thank you.
everybody.
Yeah.
To